Welcome to Congress in Context.
Hello.
We're here to take the massive, often confusing stack of documents that come out of Washington, D.C., and translate them into something that actually matters to your daily life.
That really is the mission. We strip away the jargon, look at the raw data, and today that's the Congressional Record for Thursday, February 5, 2026, and we figure out what is actually happening beneath all the noise.
And let's face it, February 5th was loud. If you think Congress is just boring speeches, this deep dive is definitely going to change your mind.
Yeah.
We have a huge standoff over Homeland Security funding that could mess with your next flight. We have a debate about, and I'm not making this up, flesh-eating parasites.
A very real biological threat to the cattle industry, by the way. It is not just a metaphor for politics.
No, not a metaphor. We also have a showdown over the Epstein files and some very, very contentious judicial confirmations. But before we get into the heavy stuff, we have to start with the mechanics. I like to understand the machine before we, drive the car.
Fair enough. We often hear about gridlock, but there are these little mechanisms designed to keep things moving. And there was a perfect example of this on the 5th.
Okay.
It was during the nomination of Justin R. Olson to be a judge. Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming stood up and asked for unanimous consent to waive the mandatory quorum call.
Waive the mandatory quorum call. It sounds, I don't know, like something from a condo association meeting to get things moving faster. Is it just skipping a roll call?
Effectively, yes, but the context is everything under Senate Rule 22, which governs cloture.
Which is just the fancy word for ending a debate.
Right, forcing a vote. So under that rule, you're technically required to have a quorum call first. The clerk has to call the roll to make sure a majority of senators are actually in the room before they can even vote to stop talking.
So wait, without this waiver, every single time they want to end debate on a judge, they'd have to burn 20 minutes on a head count.
Precisely. And then more time voting on whether to vote. In a Senate that's trying to process a backlog of nominations, those 20-minute chunks just eat up the calendar.
Okay, so Barrasso is just saying, look, we all know who's here. Let's just get to it.
Exactly. Let's skip the pageantry. And because no one objected, they moved immediately to the vote to end debate on Judge Olson.
Which passed 51-47. But that smooth procedural moment was about the only thing running smoothly when it came to the Department of Homeland Security.
Oh, yeah. That was the big story of the day.
It really was.
DHS is operating on a ticking clock. The funding is about to expire. And the Senate floor wasn't a debate. It was like a battlefield between two completely different realities.
I read the transcripts from Majority Leader John Thune and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer back to back. It's like they're discussing two different planets. Let's start with the Republican side with Thune.
He sounded fed up, is putting it lightly.
Yeah.
Thune's argument is very procedural, very practical. He's pointing out that the House has already done its job. They passed a DHS funding bill with almost 80% support.
Which, in this climate, is a unicorn.
It's a unicorn. So Thune's position is, we had a deal, a 6-bill package, and then Senate Democrats decided to, and this is his quote, blow it up.
He kept bringing up a continuing resolution, a CR. That's just a stopgap, right? A Band-Aid.
Exactly, just keeping funding at current levels for a bit.
Yep.
But Thune says Democrats are demanding a CR with a super tight timeline, basically to force a crisis. He warned this has real consequences.
He listed off the TSA, FEMA, the Secret Service.
Right. He's saying if you shut this down to score political points, you are creating a travel disaster and you are risking national safety.
But then you flip the page to Senator Schumer, and he's not even talking about budgets or timeline.
Not at all. He's talking about civil rights. This is why the standoff is so rigid. Schumer isn't arguing about the dollar amount. He's arguing about the conduct of the people getting the money. He went hard on Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE.
He mentioned roving patrols and agents entering homes without warrants.
Exactly. So his leverage is the funding bill. He's saying no money unless we get policy changes. He wants body cameras for agents, strict ID requirements. He's framing this as a Fourth Amendment issue.
So the why it matters here is really twofold. On one hand, you've got Thune saying air travel and disaster response could hit a wall. On the other, Schumer saying we're funding a police force that's not following the Constitution.
And that is the classic trap of a must-pass bill. Because it has to pass to keep the lights on, it becomes the vehicle for every other fight that can't pass on its own.
Now, while they were locking horns over that, the Senate did manage to push through 2 judges.
They did.
We mentioned the procedural move for Justin Olson, but let's look at the substance. These were not consensus candidates.
No, not at all. Let's start with Brian Charles Lee. for the U.S. District Court in Western Tennessee. He was confirmed, but barely, 50 to 46.
And the opposition, led by Senator Durbin, seemed to be focused on whether he was actually, from Tennessee.
That and his track record. Durbin pointed out that Leah didn't have specific experience in Tennessee state courts, but he also hit Leah for defending Trump administration grant policies that courts later found were arbitrary.
So it's a mix of he's too partisan and he's an outsider.
Pretty much. But he got through. The second judge, Justin Olson for Indiana, he generated even more heat. That debate felt like a full-blown culture war.
It really did.
You had Senator Jim Banks of Indiana championing Olson as a defender of women's sports.
Right, in that NCAA litigation.
Yes, and as a defender of free speech on campus. So for Banks, Olson is a hero for conservative values.
And that's exactly why Senator Durbin opposed him.
Exactly. Durbin's attack wasn't on legal technicalities. It was about temperament. He brought up a client Olson represented who used some extreme rhetoric about transgender rights, comparing them to pedophilia.
And Olson wouldn't condemn the rhetoric in his hearing.
He declined to. So for Durbin, it was a question of judgment.
Yeah.
And Olson got confirmed 50 to 47.
2 judges, 2 razor-thin margins. It really just shows you how polarized that whole process has become.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's pivot. Beyond the judges and the funding fights, there were several, let's call them deep dive topics that senators brought to the floor.
Yeah, the speeches where they try to highlight issues that aren't on the cable news chyron, but are critical to their states.
Exactly. Let's start with agriculture. Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa was on the floor marking the 6th anniversary of the USMCA.
The trade deal that replaced NAFTA. And for Grassley, this was a victory lap.
He had some big numbers.
He did. He said U.S. ag exports are up by $35 billion since 2019. And here's the key stat for an Iowa senator. Mexico is now the #1 market for U.S. corn.
So trade's booming. But then we switch to foreign policy, and the tone gets much, much darker.
Yeah, a lot darker.
Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi was talking about Ukraine.
Wicker was trying to counter this narrative that Russia is winning. He's arguing Putin is actually failing, that he's captured less than 1% of territory in 2 years. But he highlighted the human cost Putin targeting civilians with energy attacks in the dead of winter.
And he was pushing for a sanctions bill.
He was. And then on the other side of the aisle, you had Senator Elizabeth Warren raising a red flag about the UAE and AI chips.
This sounded like a plot from a techno-thriller.
It's a tangled web. She was calling to pass a resolution, S-Res 598. She's criticizing a deal that allows the export of advanced AI chips to the United Arab Emirates. But she's alleging a direct conflict of interest.
She connected it to the spy sheikh and a crypto venture.
She did. She drew a line from a $500 million investment by a UAE official into a Trump family crypto business to the subsequent approval of these high-tech exports. She is basically suggesting national security tech is being traded for private financial gain.
Oh, wow. Speaking of transparency, we can't skip the Epstein files.
Right. Senator Schumer tried to force the issue. S-Res 597.
He wanted to sue the administration for not releasing the files.
Essentially, yes. For failing to meet the legal deadline, which was back in December 2025. Schumer argued what was released was so heavily redacted, and worse, it carelessly exposed victim identities while hiding the perpetrators.
But it got blocked.
It did. Senator Barrasso objected, called it a political stunt to distract from the DHS funding fight. So that resolution is dead in the water for now.
Okay, so we've got trade, war, crypto, scandals, but the topic that really stuck with me, the one that feels like science fiction, was from Senator John Cornyn of Texas. We have to talk about the New World screwworm.
This is one of those things where biology just completely ignores politics.
Right.
Cornyn came to the floor to sound the alarm about a parasite. The New World screwworm infects warm-blooded animals, especially cattle.
I looked this up. The larvae eat living tissue. It's horrific.
It's devastating. And Cornyn pointed out that this parasite has spread from Central America up through Mexico and is now less than 400 miles from the U.S. border.
So if it crosses, it could cripple the Texas cattle industry.
And raise the price of beef at every grocery store in America. But the solution is fascinating. They're not just spraying poison. They're using sterile flies.
Explain that.
The USDA literally releases millions of sterile male flies. They mate with the wild females, but since they're sterile, no offspring are produced. the population just crashes. Cornyn was pushing for a new facility in South Texas to ramp up this biological defense.
That is just amazing that in the same record you have arguments about AI chips and plans for a massive release of sterile flies.
That's the scale of the federal government. It covers everything.
Okay, let's shift gears. We've been very Senate heavy. We need to look at the House of Representatives, specifically a section called Extensions of Remarks.
This is such an important part of the record. Not every speech is given at a podium. This allows representatives to submit written statements for the official record, and it's often where you find the most local, community-focused content.
It really is like the community bulletin board of Congress. We found 3 really moving tributes. First, from Mississippi.
Right. So while it wasn't spoken on the floor, Representative Trent Kelly submitted a statement honoring the life of Carl Foxhaus.
From Bryan Foods?
A huge name in West Point, Mississippi. He was vice president of procurement there. But Rhett Kelly really focused on his contribution to wildlife conservation, his role in shaping the culture of Mossy Oak. It's a great local story.
Then we go out west. Representative Salud Carbajal of California honoring the 125th anniversary of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
A huge milestone. Carbajal highlighted their motto, learn by doing. He just wanted to make sure their contribution to California and the country was recognized at the federal level.
And finally, back east, Representative Gregory Meeks of New York honoring a retiring educator, Dr. Crystal Bonds.
This is a real success story. She was the superintendent of District 29 in Southeast Queens, and Meeks noted that under her leadership, her high school's ranking went from 30th to 1st.
Wow.
That's a life-changing impact for those families, and it's important that it gets memorialized.
While we're in the House, we should quickly mention some new bills that were introduced just to see what might be coming.
3 stood out. H.R. 7399 from Representative Luna, a bill to prohibit users under 13 from accessing social media.
Parents will definitely be watching that one.
For sure. Then H.R. 7391 from Representative Bergman, which deals with drug pricing for health centers. And finally, H.R. 7411 from Representative Thompson of Pennsylvania to expand tele-screening mammography for veterans.
All very different, all very specific. So let's zoom out. You've got this massive tension in the Senate over DHS, a ticking clock, policy fights, partisan judge battles.
Right.
And then in the House, these quiet moments honoring local heroes.
It's the duality of Congress, the macro and the micro. You have Thune and Schumer in a power struggle that affects national air travel, and on the same day, a bipartisan concern about a parasite attacking cattle.
And that actually brings us to our final thought. You mentioned the screwworm.
I did, and this is the question I want to leave with you. We spend so much time and energy debating political borders, who crosses them, how we police them, this whole DHS fight. But the screwworm segment raises a different question. How prepared is our government to handle threats that simply do not respect political borders?
That is a great point. That fly is inching closer to Texas, regardless of whether the Senate waves a quorum call or not.
Precisely. Biology does not care about a continuing resolution.
Yeah.
So are we focusing enough on those biological and environmental threats amidst all the political noise?
Something to chew on. If you want to read the full text of these DHS debates, or the stats on the screwworm, or the full tributes from Reps Kelly, Carbajal, and Meeks, you can find the Congressional Record for February 5, 2026 at congress.gov.
It is all there in black and white.
Thanks for diving in with us on Congress in Context.
See you next time.